This is 4 things I've learned while bowling two-handed. If you guys are new to the channel, I have transitioned from bowling one-handed to bowling two-handed. And if you guys are regulars on the channel, you already know that. I'm not making the full switch. Not yet at least, but these are just a handful of things that I've kind of picked up on, learned from coaches, and observing in general, trying to get better bowling two-handed. Let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is the grip, because it's the earliest in the approach as far as tips are concerned in this video. How you put your hand in the ball is very important. Now, I've noticed a lot of people, including Jesse behind the camera, for a long time he was asking me about how he's putting his hand in the ball, and it just wasn't registering in my head. I was always thinking about his release, things like that, but he used to put his hand in the ball kind of this way, and I actually noticed that at a tournament I was watching recently, and this guy's ball roll was never reading the lane. It didn't hook very much, but he was bowling two-handed. The goal with bowling two-handed is to create more power and hook the ball more. So what I want you guys to do if you guys are struggling with this, and it's something that I kind of was playing around with too, because I was tracking over my middle finger, and we obviously don't want the track over our fingers, because now that's less of the ball that's covering the lane. Make sure you're putting your hand in the ball like you would with your thumb in it. And I actually picked up something from Kyle Troop, who puts his hand kind of more ring finger up. And that actually allowed me to help get to tip number 4, which we'll cover in a little bit. You want to make sure you have a spot that you put your hand in the same way every time, or else your ball roll is going to change. So that's one of the biggest differences between bowling one-handed and two-handed. If you have your thumb in the ball, your hand's automatically gonna be in the same spot every time with your thumb. If you're two-handed, you really gotta be more careful with how you put your hand in the ball and make sure it's the same every time. That's pretty much how I have my hand in the ball as of right now. So I'm gonna throw a shot with the, not necessarily wrong grip, but it kind of really just throws your PAP off and makes your track kind of funny. So let me see if it makes my track funny. I don't even know where to put my hand. Here? Oh yeah, definitely more rotation. That didn't feel good at all, by the way. It kind of hurt. All right, let's see where the track's at. My track is kind of like going underneath the fingers. I don't know if you can see it. Kind of hard to see on this ball. I see a much more severe case of this, especially because most people try to get their hand around it a bunch to make it hook. But when you bowl two-handed, you don't need to do that because you have the rev rate. I bowled in league last night with somebody that has this kind of track, and it's like right through the fingers. And in my head, I'm like, how does that even happen? Well, it's partially because of the grip. This is how I put my hand in the ball right now. This was how I put my hand in the ball on the last shot. And let's see the difference in ball roll and potentially carry. So my ball went a little more forward that time. It was easier for me to keep my hand behind the ball. Much stronger ball roll. We threw a strike that time. Now, am I saying that you can't throw strikes the other way? No. You can throw strikes any way possible in this game. Bowling's not black and white, nothing's set in stone. You can bowl however you want to bowl, but there is better and there is worse. There's no right and wrong. So tip number 1, kind of a 2-part. 1A, put it in the ball the same every time, and maybe get your grip in there the same way that you would if you had your thumb in the ball. Lay your fingers flat on the ball, make sure you're feeling enough contact on the pads of your fingers. Per USBC rule, there needs to be an X. Mine are kind of small. Typically it's 2 inches down from your fingers. And that's just to mark what side of the ball you're using, because you can't flip your ball upside down and use it different ways like that. But in a way, changing your grip kind of does the same thing, but use that as a reference point if you struggle with putting your hand in the ball the same way every time. All right, tip number 2, and I almost feel like, yeah, this one might actually be the most important tip that I've learned so far. When I first started bowling two-handed, and you could go back to the very first league videos where I bowled two-handed, my left hand didn't make a lot of contact with the ball. Like my fingers were barely on the ball, kind of like that. The left hand is supposed to serve as the thumb in this situation. So the thumb is your anchor point. That's the part that locks into the ball. Your left hand, or your right hand if you're left-handed, is supposed to support the ball on the way back. Now that's relieving tension in your right arm that allows your hand to get into a stronger position easier, and it allows your hand to flip through the ball faster, which would in turn create more rev rate. It's something that I still struggle with, and it's something that I continuously work on because my habit was just for the ball to slip off. So sometimes my hand will shift a little bit, but you'll notice from before to now, my hand makes way more contact with the ball and there's more weight in my left hand. And it's pretty clear. I didn't throw a great shot there, but off my hand, it felt better. It felt more comfortable. I felt like I can flip my hand through it faster and more aggressively because more of the ball was in my left hand and less of the ball was in my right. So I really tried to over-exaggerate it on that one. When I'm in competition, it's hard to think about because you really shouldn't be thinking about anything before the foul line. Competition, and there's another tip in there for you, competition-wise versus practice. When you practice, focus on before the foul line. When you're competing, it's beyond. So let me try to throw another shot where I really try to keep my left hand in this same spot. Like it almost always slips to about here, but keeping it here to start is a nice reminder for me to, keep it there, keep the weight in my left hand. I really need to do that more often. Like this should be the focus because I threw 2 really good shots off my hand. We just shot a ball video and I was just all over the place. This was less of a focus. So if you're struggling with that, maybe just try to get your hand closer to your other fingers while it's in the ball. I mean, initially, when I would bowl two-handed, my hand was like here. Not ideal. It was really weird transitioning to getting my hand over here in the setup because when I bowl one-handed, I'm holding it like this. When I bowl two-handed, I'm now like this. So that's gonna be the biggest difference. Just make sure that weight is in the left hand or your opposite hand. That one slipped a little bit. But still a pretty good shot. I mean, it's not gonna be perfect every time. Whenever we're making changes, it's gonna be different. And we're not gonna be able to do it perfect every time. Give yourself some grace. You're gonna get it sometimes, but as long as you're working towards it, it'll get better and better as you keep working. This next tip, our third tip here, not really a do or don't kind of thing. It's more of a preference. But you really want to play with, first knuckle versus second knuckle. Now my brother Mikey, shout out to TV Bowling Supply, really good two-handed bowler, just a really good bowler in general. Awesome channel, very entertaining by the way. He goes to the second knuckle. He feels like he can stay behind the ball more when he's in the second knuckle. I prefer the first knuckle just because I like the way it feels coming off my hand. I like more pressure on the pads of my fingers rather than the entire finger. That's the route I went with. I felt like I could throw it better, I can clear it better. This is my grip, first knuckle. Second knuckle would be a little more like that. I think Belmo is about second knuckle. If not, he's like semi. I'm gonna throw a shot here. Oh, on the toes. But yeah, this is more of a personal preference and feel. I'm not exactly sure what the direct differences would make, like the results from fingertip, I guess, first knuckle to second. But if you do go second knuckle, make sure you have your pro shop operator give you more reverse pitch, more away pitch to account for how much of your hand is in the ball. Now I have a little bit less here. I have a couple of balls. I've been messing with some pitch changes, but I'm currently at 3/8 in the fingers, just a little less than half. I know Belmo is about a whole inch. That's gonna be the biggest difference. I actually have a ball with more reverse at the moment, so I'll try to throw a second knuckle shot to show you guys. Hopefully my fingers come out, because my fingers are pretty tight. We'll go about halfway. I'm not trying to hurt myself here. I decided on this pretty early on in my two-handed journey. I might go back to playing around with the second knuckle because that one actually felt pretty good. I felt more secure in the ball. What Mikey said about that is pretty legitimate. Let me throw one more. Wait, I just threw my one-handed ball. Well, luckily it has the same pitches. That doesn't really change anything, but that's kind of funny. This is an experiment for another video, I think. But anyways, that's tip number 3. First knuckle versus second knuckle. Play around with it. Talk to your pro shop operator, namely Mikey at TV Bowling Supply in Columbus, Ohio, Holiday Lanes. He's really good, even though he's young. Been around for quite a bit of time, but he's been around the great, so hit him up. Tip number 4 is actually not specifically a two-handed tip, but it might be a tip that a lot of people struggle with, and it's keeping your hand behind the ball. Whether it's a mental thing or a physical thing, if you have a hard time doing it or if you just have never thought of it before, you don't need to try to create more shape with rotation because your rev rate's already gonna be high because rev rate comes from speed versus displacement, which is distance on the bowling ball. The further underneath it you can get and the faster you can go from here to here equals more rev rate. Obviously, as a two-hander, you can get your hand way more under the ball. I'll show you right here. I got 2 balls here with two-handed and thumb. Look how far underneath my hand is here. I can get it pretty far. Now, with the one-handed, it can only go so far, right? But when you get to the bottom of the swing, it's kind of hard to be here. When you have no thumb in it, you get here, it's under it. When you get to the bottom of the swing with your thumb in the ball, it's really hard to get there. At maximum potential, the two-hander is always gonna have more rev rate. But back to the tip number 4, and this is a very valuable one. Try to keep your hands up the back of it as you can. Now, I mentioned Kyle Troop and how he puts his hand in the ball before. That was an attempt for me to try to get my hand behind the ball more. So getting my hand working this way, there's blood on my fingers. I'm strapping it too hard. So more this way rather than this way kind of promotes more roll. And I think if you want to go to the second knuckle in tip number 3, that could potentially help you stay behind the ball more too. But this is a big one for getting the ball to read the lane more consistently, creating a heavier roll, and more pin carry. I took my hand off the ball. I also took 5 steps. I just forgot how to throw a ball two-handed for a second. Let me try again. That was a whole mess. All right, I'm trying to keep my hand as behind it as I can right now. And then obviously if you get so far that your ball isn't hooked, feel free to add a little more rotation. But most people struggle with getting their hand up the back. Rotation typically isn't a problem. Like I said before, it's no guarantee that any good shot or bad shot is gonna strike or not strike. Like that was pretty good, rolled it pretty forward. 9-pin, okay. But that's gonna get your ball reaction more consistent and you're gonna be able to hit the pocket way more often. And as a two-handed player, you're typically gonna have more power. All that adds up to more strikes. Those are my 4 tips for you that I've used on my journey as a two-hander so far. I hope they helped you out a bunch. If they did, let me know in the comment section below. If there's more things that you have questions about, or if you have tips for me as a two-hander, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.